Hey, good morning, everyone. We are reading June the 16th. And isn't it pretty incredible when you start reading about these godly people? People like Elijah, Elisha, the power of God that was with them. And just thinking about just that incredible reality of being a person who walks with God, who spends time with God, who hears God's voice. And what's incredible is the scriptures tell us, that if we seek the Lord, that we'll find Him. And it, and what it takes is for us to try to eliminate uh, the the competing agendas, the competing voices. Um, to really try to attune ourselves to God, and just make choices in our life that enable us to be able to just cultivate this close spirit, this close presence with God. um, and the amazing thing is that really is available, that on a daily basis that we can begin to make just one choice after another that just moves us that much closer um, to hearing the voice of God, of just, silencing those other things, quieting ourselves, choosing to live a life of faith, sowing into the spirit versus sowing into the flesh, turning off the TV, opening up our Bible, turning off the radio, and praying. Choosing to enter into conversations with other people about God, and studying His Word, and just building the interior life. And because here's the thing: is the exterior follows the interior. The exterior life will follow what we build on the inside. And in our relationship with God. And so, just rather encourage you to really pursue, get an image in your mind of who you want to be, and then pursue it. And it begins with us getting that image in our mind of, like, okay, this is the kind of person I want to. I was doing this the other day. I was thinking, and I was praying to the Lord. I'm like, Lord, I know that you want godly men. And so I pray that you would help me to hear like Samuel heard you. I pray you'd give me a heart like you gave David. I pray you'd give me, um, boldness like you gave the Apostle Peter, courage like you gave Peter. I pray you'd give me boldness like you gave the Apostle Paul. And I'm trying to get an image in my mind of who I want to be, the type of person that I want to be, and what I want to grow into. As because here's the thing: I'm not done growing. I have no intention on stopping growing. I want to be a godly man. Not just at 57. I want to be a more godly man at 67, and a more godly man at 77, and that takes effort. And I'm not talking about making an effort to try to, earn your way to heaven. Effort has gotten a pretty, uh, just has received negative connotations to it. But if you look at Scripture, there's a lot of effort, right? There's a lot of effort that is called upon, um, throughout the Bible. And so we're called to make an effort, to seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, to sow to the Spirit and not sow to the flesh. We're called to make an effort. So the question is, what kind of effort do you want to make? And so, all right, let's jump in. June 16th, 2 Kings chapter 5. Let's go ahead and jump in. The king of Aram had great admiration for Naaman, the commander of his army, because through him the Lord had given Aram great victories. But though Naaman was a mighty warrior, he suffered from leprosy. At this time, Aramean raiders had invaded the land of Israel, and among their captives was a young girl who had been given to Naaman's wife as a maid. And one day the girl said to her mistress, I wish my master would go to see the prophet in Samaria. He would heal him of his leprosy. No, so Naaman told the king what the young girl from Israel had said. Go and visit the prophet, the king of Aram told him. I will send a letter of introduction for you to take to the king of Israel. So Naaman started out carrying as gifts 750 pounds of silver, 150 pounds of gold, and 10 sets of clothing. And the letter to the king of Israel said, with this letter, I present my servant Naaman. I want you to heal him of his leprosy. Okay, just for a moment here, just let's pause and let's just kind of capture this reality. You got Judah, right? It's the southern kingdom. Remember, Israel split after King Solomon. Rehoboam is split. Judah's in the south, Israel's in the north, and you've got all of these other nations that are these warring nations all around Israel that have been attacking Israel. And at this moment, the king of Aram, which is this nation just to the north of Israel, they had this Israelite girl, right, who had been captured and taken, right? She tells this, Naaman, this soldier who is a great soldier, right, and close to the king. This Israelite girl tells Naaman, you should go to Israel and have the prophet in Israel heal you, because I've seen what he can do. And so now the Naaman goes to the king of Aram and says, hey, this is what my servant girl says. And so this king of Aram sends Naaman and this entourage of people into Israel and says, I want you to heal him. This is an amazing story. So look at what it says. When the king of Israel read the letter, he tore his clothes in dismay and said, this man sends me a leper to heal? Am I God that I can give life and take away? I can see that he's just trying to pick a fight with me. But when Elisha, the man of God, heard that the king of Israel had torn his clothes in dismay, he sent this message to him. Why are you so upset? Send Naaman to me, and he will learn that there is a true prophet in Israel. So Naaman went with his horses and chariots and waited at the door of Elisha's house. But Elisha sent a messenger out to him with this message. Go and wash yourself 7 times in the Jordan River. Then your skin will be restored, and you will be healed of your leprosy. But Naaman became angry, and he stalked away. I thought he would certainly come out to meet me, he said. I expected him to wave his hand over the leprosy and call on the name of the Lord his God and heal me. He had all these things contrived in his head of what he thought that the prophet should do. And then he says, aren't the rivers of Damascus and the Abana and Pharpar better than any of the rivers of Israel? Why shouldn't I wash in them and be healed? So Naaman turned and went away in a rage. But his officers tried to reason with him and said, Sir, if the prophet had told you to do something very difficult, wouldn't you have done it? So you should certainly obey him when he says simply go and wash and be cured. So Naaman went down to the Jordan River and dipped himself 7 times as the man of God had instructed him, and his skin became as healthy as the skin of a young child, and he was healed. And then Naaman and his entire party went back to find the man of God, and they stood before him, and Naaman said, now I know that there is a God. There is no God in all the world except in Israel. So please accept a gift from your servant. Now watch what Elisha does. But Elisha replied, as surely as the Lord lives whom I serve, I will not accept any gifts. And though Naaman urged him to take the gifts, Elisha refused. And then Naaman said, all right, but please allow me to load 2 of my mules with earth from this place, and I'll take it back home with me. From now on, I will never again offer burnt offerings or sacrifices to any other god except the Lord. However, may the Lord pardon me in this one thing. When my master, the king, goes into the temple of the god Rimmon to worship there and leans on my arm, may the Lord pardon me when I bow too. Go in peace, Elisha said. So Naaman started home. So there is ministerial ethics here that is, quite honestly, it's often missing today. Um, Elisha says, I'm not taking any special gifts. I get my pay from the Lord. The Lord takes care of me, but I'm not going to create these opportunities that I can begin to profit in ways that are self-promoting. And this is an important thing for spiritual leadership. And it's an important thing for pastors to understand. We've got to be very careful of our love of money, love of resources, and if we aren't careful, we can build pastors can build a heart of spiritual leaders in general, can build a heart of entitlement, and just anybody in leadership, right? We see people in politics that do this all the time, people in churches that can do it, and we just have to be really cautious. And I'm not saying that pastors shouldn't be paid. I've been a pastor all my life, and but we just have to be super, super careful of not cultivating a spirit where we feel leaders feel entitled to special perks and things like that. There needs to be a heart of servanthood, a heart of sacrifice. And if in the sacrifice God chooses to bless a person, that's one thing. But we've got to be super, super cautious. Okay, and so let's continue. But Gehazi, the servant of Elisha, the man of God, said to himself, my master should not have let this Aramean get away without accepting any of his gifts. As surely as the Lord lives, I will chase after him and get something from him. So Gehazi set off after Naaman. And when Naaman saw Gehazi running after him, he climbed down from his chariot and went to meet him. Is everything all right? Naaman asked. Yes, Gehazi said, but my master has sent me to tell you that 2 young prophets from the hill country of Ephraim have just arrived. He lies. He would like 75 pounds of silver and 2 sets of clothes to give to them. By all means, take twice as much silver, Naaman insisted. And he gave him 2 sets of clothing, tied up the money in 2 bags, and sent 2 of his servants to carry the gifts for Gehazi. But when they arrived at the citadel, Gehazi took the gifts from the servants and sent the men back. Then he went and hid the gifts inside the house. When he went into his master, Elisha asked him, where have you been, Gehazi? I haven't been anywhere, he replied. But Elisha asked him, don't you realize that I was there in spirit when Naaman stepped down from his chariot to meet you? Is this the time to receive money and clothing, olive groves and vineyards, sheep and cattle, and male and female servants? Because you have done this, you and your descendants will suffer from Naaman's leprosy forever. When Gehazi left the room, he was covered with leprosy. His skin was white as snow. It's interesting because he doesn't just call out the silver, right? There's obviously a problem here. And we see it with Eli's sons who served as prophets, where they were dipping into the Lord's the sacrifices, and were taking out meat, some of the fat of the sacrifices that didn't belong to them, belonged to the Lord. We see people like this. We see people like Ananias and Sapphira, right, who were conspiring, driven by greed, and certainly here. And he mentions not just that, the silver, but evidently there's a chain, right, of something that Gehazi and the others are involved with, because he says, is this a time to receive money, okay, and clothing? And now he lists also olive groves and vineyards, sheep and cattle and male and female servants. Evidently, Gehazi, you've been kind of dipping in to the Lord's stuff, and serving the Lord has become about, the pursuit of you getting things instead of you giving of yourself. And so it's a serious breach of of, just ministerial ethics here. And he ends up contracting the leprosy that had left Naaman. Interesting. 2 Kings 6. One day the group of prophets came to Elisha and told him, as you can see, this place where we meet with you is too small. Let's go down to the Jordan River where there are plenty of logs. There we can build a new place for us to meet. All right, he told them, go ahead. Please come with us, someone suggested. I will, he said, and so he went with them. And when they arrived at the Jordan, they began cutting down trees. But as one of them was cutting a tree, his axe head fell into the river. Oh, sir, he replied, it was a borrowed axe. Well, where did it fall? The man of God asked. And when he showed him the place, Elisha cut a stick, threw it into the water at that spot, and then the axe head floated to the surface. Grab it, Elisha said, and the man reached out and grabbed it. And when the king of Aram was at war with Israel, he would confer with his officers and say, we will mobilize our forces at such and such a place. But immediately Elisha, the man of God, would warn the king of Israel, do not go near that place, for the Arameans are planning to mobilize their troops there. So the king of Israel would send word to the place indicated by the man of God. Time and again, Elisha warned the king so that he would be on the alert there. The king of Aram became very upset over this. He called his officers together and demanded, which of you is the traitor? Who's been informing the king of Israel of my plans? No, it's not us, my lord the king, one of the officers replied. Elisha, the prophet in Israel, tells the king of Israel, even the words you speak in the privacy of your bedroom. Well, go and find out where he is, the king commanded, so I can send troops to seize him. And the report came back, Elisha is at Dothan. So one night the king of Aram sent a great army with many chariots and horses to surround the city. When the servant of the man of God got up early the next morning and went outside, there were troops, horses, and chariots everywhere. Oh, sir, what will we do now? The young man cried to Elisha. Don't be afraid, Elisha told him, for there are more on our side than on theirs. And then Elisha prayed, O Lord, open his eyes and let him see. And the Lord opened the young man's eyes, and when he looked up, he saw that the hillside around Elisha was filled with horses and chariots of fire. Oh, that we would have our eyes opened to the truth of God's armies all around us. As the Aramean army advanced towards him, Elisha prayed, O Lord, please make them blind. So the Lord struck them with blindness as Elisha had asked. And then Elisha went out and told them, you have come the wrong way. This isn't the right city. Follow me, and I will take you to the man you are looking for. And he led them to the city of Samaria. And as soon as they had entered Samaria, Elisha prayed, O Lord, now open their eyes and let them see. So the Lord opened their eyes, and they discovered that they were in the middle of Samaria. When the king of Israel saw them, he shouted to Elisha, my father, should I kill them? Should I kill them? Of course not, Elisha replied. Do we kill prisoners of war? Give them food and drink and send them home again to their master. So the king made a great feast for them and then sent them home to their master. After that, the Aramean raiders stayed away from the land of Israel. Well, sometime later, however, King Ben-Hadad of Aram mustered his entire army and besieged Samaria. As a result, there was a great famine in the city. The siege lasted so long that a donkey's head sold for 80 pieces of silver, and a cup of dove's dung sold for 5 pieces of silver. One day, as the king of Israel was walking around the wall of the city, a woman called to him, please help me, my lord the king. And he answered, if the Lord doesn't help you, what can I do? I have neither food from the threshing floor nor wine from the press to give you. But then the king asked, well, what is the matter? And she replied, this woman said to me, come on, let's eat your son today, and then we will eat my son tomorrow. So we cooked my son and ate him. And then the next day I said to her, kill your son so we can eat him. But she has hidden her son. And when the king heard this, he tore his clothes in despair. And as the king walked along the wall, the people could see that he was wearing burlap under his robe next to his skin. And may God strike me and even kill me, if I don't separate Elisha's head from his shoulders this very day, the king vowed. And Elisha was sitting in the house with the elders of Israel when the king sent a messenger to summon him. But before the messenger arrived, Elisha said to the elders, a murderer has sent a man to cut off my head. When he arrives, shut the door and keep him out. We will soon hear his master's steps following him. While Elisha was still saying this, the messenger arrived, and the king said, "All this misery is from the Lord. Why should I wait for the Lord any longer?" And Elisha replied, "Listen to this message from the Lord. This is what the Lord says. By this time tomorrow, in the markets of Samaria, 5 quarts of choice flour will cost only a piece of silver, and 10 quarts of barley grain will cost only a piece of silver." And the officer assisting the king said to the man of God, "That couldn't happen even if the Lord opened the windows of heaven." But Elisha replied, "You will see it happen with your own eyes, but you won't be able to eat any of it." 2 Kings 7:3. Now there were 4 men with leprosy sitting at the entrance of the city gates. "Why should we sit here waiting to die?" they asked each other. "We will starve if we stay here, but with the famine in the city, we will starve if we go back there. So we might as well go out and surrender to the Aramean army. If they let us live, so much the better. But if they kill us, we would have died anyway." So at twilight, they set out for the camp of the Arameans. But when they came to the edge of the camp, no one was there. For the Lord had caused the Aramean army to hear the clatter of speeding chariots and the galloping of horses and the sounds of a great army approaching. And the king of Israel has hired the Hittites and Egyptians to attack us, they cried to one another. So they panicked and ran into the night, abandoning their tents, horses, donkeys, and everything else as they fled for their lives. And when the lepers arrived at the edge of the camp, they went into one tent after another, eating and drinking wine, and they carried off silver and gold and clothing and hid it. Finally, they said to each other, "This is not right. This is a day of good news, and we aren't sharing it with anyone. If we wait until morning, some calamity will certainly fall upon us. Come on, let's go back and tell the people at the palace." So they went back to the city and told the gatekeepers what had happened. "We went out to the Aramean camp," they said, "and no one was there. The horses and donkeys were tethered and the tents were all in order, but there wasn't a single person around." And then the gatekeepers shouted the news to the people in the palace. Well, the king got out of bed in the middle of the night and told his officers, "I know what has happened. The Arameans know we are starving, so they have left their camp and have hidden in the fields. They are expecting us to leave the city, and then they will take us alive and capture the city." One of his officers replied, "Well, we had better send out scouts and check into this. Let them take 5 of the remaining horses. If something happens to them, it will be no worse than if they stay here and die with the rest of us." So 2 chariots with horses were prepared, and the king sent scouts to see what had happened to the Aramean army. They went all the way to the Jordan River, following a trail of clothing and equipment that the Arameans had thrown away in their mad rush to escape. The scouts returned and told the king about it. Then the people of Samaria rushed out and plundered the Aramean camp. So it was true that 5 quarts of choice flour were sold that day for 1 piece of silver, and 10 quarts of barley grain were sold for 1 piece of silver, just as the Lord had promised. And the king appointed his officer to control the traffic at the gate, but he was knocked down and trampled to death as the people rushed out. So everything happened exactly as the man of God had predicted when the king came to his house. The man of God had said to the king, "By this time tomorrow, in the markets of Samaria, 5 quarts of choice flour will cost 1 piece of silver, and 10 quarts of barley grain will cost 1 piece of silver." And the king's officer had replied, "That couldn't happen, even if the Lord opened the windows of heaven." And the man of God said, "You will see it happen with your own eyes, but you won't be able to eat any of it." And so it was, for the people trampled him to death at the gate. So what the Lord says is true. 2 Kings 8. Elisha had told a woman whose son he had brought back to life, "Take your family and move to some other place, for the Lord has called for a famine on Israel that will last for 7 years." So the woman did as the man of God instructed. She took her family and settled in the land of the Philistines for 7 years. After the famine ended, she returned from the land of the Philistines, and she went to see the king about getting her back her house and land. As she came in, the king was talking with Gehazi, the servant of the man of God. The king had just said, "Tell me some stories about the great things Elisha has done." And Gehazi was telling the king about the time Elisha had brought a boy back to life. And at that very moment, the mother of the boy walked in to make her appeal to the king about her house and land. "Look, my lord the king," Gehazi exclaimed, "here's the woman now. And this is her son, the very one Elisha brought back to life." "Is this true?" the king asked her. And she told him the story. So he directed one of his officials to see that everything she had lost was restored to her, including the value of any crops that had been harvested during her absence. You talk about God's timing, perfect timing, perfect timing of supply for that woman. So it's just incredible. 2 Kings 8:7. Elisha went to Damascus, the capital of Aram, where King Ben-Hadad lay sick. When someone told the king that the man of God had come, the king said to Hazael, "Take a gift to the man of God, then tell him to ask the Lord, will I recover from this illness?" So Hazael loaded down 40 camels with the finest products of Damascus as a gift for Elisha. He went to him and said, "Your servant Ben-Hadad, the king of Aram, has sent me to ask, will I recover from this illness?" And Elisha replied, "Go and tell him you will surely recover. But actually the Lord had shown me that he will surely die." Elisha stared at Hazael with a fixed gaze until Hazael became uneasy. And then the man of God started weeping. "What's the matter, my lord?" Hazael asked him. And Elisha replied, "I know the terrible things you will do to the people of Israel. You will burn their fortified cities. You will kill their young men with sword, dash their little children to the ground, and rip open their pregnant women." Hazael responded, "How could a nobody like me ever accomplish such great things?" And Elisha answered, "The Lord has shown me that you are going to be the king of Aram." When Hazael left Elisha and went back, the king asked him, "What did Elisha tell you?" And Hazael replied, "He told me that you will surely recover." But the next day Hazael took a blanket, soaked it in water, and held it over the king's face until he died. And then Hazael became the next king of Aram. All right, so fascinating stories as we work our way through the Old Testament, right? The people of God been brought into the promised land, settled in there, and they split, civil war. And now the king of Israel, the Israelite nations are kind of weaving their way as they are, just kind of living in the land. They're leaning into wickedness, leaning into ungodliness, way more than what they lean into faithfulness and godliness. Judah does a little bit better. They lean into godliness, and then they waver. But they certainly do much better than the nation of Israel, at least for the time being, but off and on. And so now we're still seeing this reality of, when a culture, when a people in general, when people move away from God, stop being faithful, the results, they hit on many, many levels, as you see. When people are faithful, the results hit on many levels. And so faithfulness pays off long term. Unfaithfulness causes harm long term. So we get to make the choice. I hope you make the right choice. Be faithful to God. Follow him no matter what. Sow that into your children's life. And the generations following you will call you blessed because of it. All right. Well, God bless you. Hope you have a really great day today, and we'll see you tomorrow.